It was the kind of winter that lingered in the bones, cold, gray, and heavy. The little diner on Maple Street tried to stay warm with the smell of frying bacon and the soft hum of an old jukebox. But even inside, the air felt tired, like everything had been running on empty for too long. Lisa worked the morning shift, like she always did. She was in her mid-20s but already looked older, worn down from long hours and short tempers. Her ponytail was messy, her apron stained with yesterday's coffee. She had stopped smiling for customers a long time ago, especially the ones who didn't tip well. In her eyes, kindness was a luxury she couldn't afford. Mr. Jenkins, the diner's owner, moved slowly behind the counter, wiping it down more out of habit than need. He was in his 60s, with kind eyes and a quiet way about him. Rumor had it he was looking to sell the place soon, but no one knew for sure. The door creaked open, letting in a gust of freezing air, and a man no one recognized. He looked rough. His coat was dirty, his beard overgrown, and his shoes barely held together. Without saying a word, he walked to the farthest booth and sat down. People turned to stare, and Lisa's eyes narrowed. She didn't like his kind drifters, beggars, people who made the place look bad. She sighed loudly, grabbed her notepad, and walked over with heavy steps. He looked up and gave her a small nod. "Can I just get some water?" he asked softly. Lisa rolled her eyes. "We don't do free service," she snapped. "This isn't a shelter." The man looked down, silent again. Across the room, Mr. Jenkins watched, but said nothing. The man stayed seated, his eyes lowered, hands tucked into his worn sleeves as if he were trying to disappear. A few customers whispered to each other. Lisa stood there with her arms crossed, tapping her pen on the pad. "If you're not ordering anything," she said louder this time, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." He looked up slowly, there was no anger in his face, just sadness, like he had heard these words 100 times before. "I don't have much. Just wanted a warm spot for a bit," he said. "Maybe a little toast if there's anything left over." Lisa let out a short, sharp laugh. "Toast? What do you think this is? Charity?" A few people chuckled awkwardly, unsure whether to laugh or feel guilty. The man didn't reply. He just nodded and started to rise, but before he could stand, a soft voice came from behind the counter. "Lisa," said Marla, an older waitress who had worked there for over 20 years. "Let him stay a minute." Lisa turned around, frustrated. "He's not a paying customer." Marla didn't answer. Instead, she walked to the back, pulled out a small paper bag from her purse, and brought it over to the man. Inside was half a sandwich and a piece of fruit. "It's from my lunch," she said gently. "You're welcome to it." The man looked at her with quiet surprise. "Thank you, ma'am, you're very kind." Lisa rolled her eyes again. "You're just encouraging people to loiter." The man nodded at Marla once more, and slowly began to eat, his hands shaking slightly from the cold. When he finished, he stood, folded the bag, and placed it neatly on the table. "Thank you again," he said, mostly to Marla. Then he turned and walked out into the cold, leaving only silence behind. Lisa huffed. "Great, now we're the town soup kitchen." Mr. Jenkins said nothing. He stood quietly behind the counter, wiping the same glass over and over, his eyes still fixed on the door. The bell above it jingled as the wind slammed it shut. The next few days were uneventful, but the air in the diner had shifted. Marla seemed more thoughtful, humming less as she poured coffee. Lisa went on like nothing happened, cracking jokes with the fry cook and grumbling about tips. But around town something strange was stirring. A few customers mentioned seeing the homeless man Ray as someone had overheard, near the town library. One woman said he'd been writing in a leather notebook for hours. Another claimed he had walked into the local bank and met with the branch manager dressed the same in his ragged coat. Lisa laughed at the stories. "What's next? He's a secret millionaire," she joked while refilling sugar containers. Marla didn't laugh. "You never know, Lisa," she said quietly. "People aren't always what they seem." Lisa rolled her eyes. "I know what I saw, a man who looked like he hadn't bathed in weeks. If he's a millionaire, then I'm the Queen of England." At the same time, a new rumor was making its way through town. Mr. Jenkins was finally selling the diner. The news hit the regulars hard. The diner had been around for decades. Everyone had a memory there. I just hope whoever buys it doesn't ruin the place, Marla said one evening while restocking the condiments. Lisa, on the other hand, had her own dreams. Maybe someone fancy will take over. Clean this dump up. Finally some class. Maybe even real menus with gold trim, she said with a smirk. She started wearing lipstick to her shifts and brushing her hair more often, just in case the new owner dropped by. She was tired of living on tips and wiping ketchup off cracked tables. One morning, Mr. Jenkins made an announcement in the break room. I've accepted an offer. The new owner will visit soon. He didn't say who it was. Lisa's heart skipped. Maybe her luck was finally turning around. It was a gray morning when the car pulled up. The diner was halfway through breakfast rush when a sleek black car rolled to a slow stop outside. It stood out on Maple Street like a tuxedo in a laundry pile. Lisa noticed it first through the window and nearly dropped a tray of plates. She smoothed her apron, fixed her hair in the reflection of the coffee pot, and whispered to Marla, "This must be it. The new owner. Told you this place was about to get classy." Marla gave her a small smile but didn't say anything. She had a strange feeling in her chest. The door creaked open. For a moment the diner went quiet. It wasn't a man in a suit who walked in. It wasn't some rich stranger with shiny shoes and cologne. It was him. The homeless man, Ray. Only he wasn't in the same torn coat or broken shoes. He wore a clean dark sweater, nice jeans and leather boots. His hair was trimmed, his beard neat. He stood tall now, his eyes calm and steady as he looked around the room. Lisa froze, confused. Her smile fell. What is he doing here? She whispered under her breath. Ray walked straight to the counter where Mr. Jenkins stood, wiping his hands with a towel. The old man grinned and held out his hand. Right on time, Mr. Jenkins said. They shook hands. The room held its breath. Lisa walked over quickly. Mr. Jenkins, why is he? But Ray turned and spoke. His voice quiet but full of strength. My name is Raymond Hale. I'm the new owner. Lisa's face went pale. That's not possible, she stammered. You were begging for toast just last week. Ray nodded. Yes, I was. And you showed me exactly who you are when you thought I had nothing. A few people in the diner stared in shock. Marla stood silently, her eyes wide. Ray turned to her next. And you showed me kindness without asking for anything in return. I'll never forget that. Marla's hand went to her mouth, and her eyes filled with tears. Mr. Jenkins nodded. Ray's been looking for a small-town diner to invest in. He didn't want marble floors or champagne brunch. He wanted real people, real hearts. Ray looked around the diner slowly. I dressed like that on purpose. I needed to see how people would treat me when I had nothing. His eyes stopped on Lisa. You made it clear that people like me weren't welcome here. And I can't have that in a place I own. Lisa tried to laugh it off, her voice trembling. Come on, I was just doing my job. Ray's face was calm but firm. No, you were showing who you are when no one was watching. That matters to me more than any resume. The diner went still again. A coffee mug clinked on the counter. Someone gasped softly. Ray looked at Mr. Jenkins. I'd like Marla to be the new floor manager, if she's willing. Mr. Jenkins smiled. I think she'd be perfect. Ray nodded, then turned to Lisa. I won't be keeping you on. I wish you well, but this isn't the place for someone who judges people by what they wear. Lisa stood frozen. Her face flushed red, then pale. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Finally she grabbed her purse from behind the counter and walked out the door without a word. The bell above the door jingled as it closed behind her. No one said a thing for a long time. Then Ray smiled gently at Marla. I'm not here to change everything. I just want a place where people feel welcome, no matter what they look like when they walk in. Later that day, after the shock had settled, the staff gathered in the back for a quick meeting. Ray stood beside Mr. Jenkins, who looked more relaxed than he had in months. The deal was official now, and the diner had a new owner with a quiet smile and a powerful story. Ray looked around the room. I know today was surprising for everyone. Some of you probably still don't believe it. But I meant what I said. He turned to Marla. You showed me kindness when you didn't have to. That mattered. I'd like you to be the floor manager starting next week. Better hours, better pay, and full say over who works here. Marla's eyes widened. Ray, I don't know what to say. I thank you. I never expected this. You didn't need to, Ray said softly. That's why it meant something. He turned back to the rest of the group. I don't care if someone's wearing a suit or a trash bag. I care how they treat people. This diner will be a place where anyone can feel human again. Just then, Lisa walked back into the room. Her face was red from crying. Mascara smudged under her eyes. She looked smaller somehow, not just because of what she'd lost, but because of what she'd revealed. Ray, she said quietly, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have treated you that way. Please, give me another chance. Everyone looked at Ray. He paused thinking. Then he said, gently but firmly, Lisa, I hope you grow from this. I really do, but I can't have you here, not right now. The people who serve others need to know what it's like to respect them. Lisa looked down. She nodded, tears rolling silently down her cheeks. Ray continued, sometimes losing something helps us see what matters. I hope this does that for you. Without another word, Lisa turned and walked out again. This time slower, quieter. The room stayed silent for a while. Then Ray took a deep breath and smiled. Now he said, who wants pie? I hear this place makes a pretty good one. A few people laughed softly, and the air began to feel lighter. Something had changed, not just ownership, but the heart of the place. A few months later, the diner looked a little different, and the booths had been reupholstered. The lighting was warmer. The coffee tasted fresher. The lighting was warmer. The coffee tasted fresher, but the soul of the place, that stayed the same. Thanks to Ray and Marla, the front chalkboard now read, everyone's welcome. Every time, people came from all over the town, and even outside it. Truck drivers, teachers, moms with toddlers, and yes, even a few folks who didn't have much in their pockets. No one was turned away, and no one was mocked for what they wore or how they looked. Marla, now wearing a manager's badge, walked the floor with quiet pride. She made sure her staff treated people like people. She'd even hired a dishwasher who had once lived in his car. Ray came in often. He always sat in the same corner booth, the one he'd once been asked to leave. He'd read the newspaper, drink his black coffee, and smile as he watched the diner buzz around him. One day, a customer leaned over and whispered, that guy owns the place. Marla nodded. He's the reason this place feels different now. As for Lisa, word around town was she got a job at a gas station across the highway. She didn't talk much, but some said she was kinder now, more careful with her words. Maybe she learned something. One snowy morning, a boy came into the diner with holes in his gloves. Marla handed him hot cocoa without asking. He smiled like he hadn't had kindness in a long time. Ray watched from his booth, nodding to himself. Because in the end, he hadn't just bought a restaurant. He built a place where no one was less than. And sometimes, that kind of wealth is the rarest of all. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more powerful stories that remind us why kindness matters. Your support helps us keep sharing moments that make a difference.